Thank you for tuning in to Exeter TV. Exeter TV is the town's public and government access channels, available on Comcast Channels 6 and 22. Channel 6 is your channel. If you have an idea for a program, want to host your own talk show, or submit a film, we're here to get your content on television. On Channel 22, we bring you live and replay coverage of government meetings and other town updates. A third channel, Blue Hawk Media, is operated by SAU 16 and can be found on Channel 8, with all your school sports, events, and meetings. You can watch Exeter TV online at exeternh.tv, Apple TV, and on Roku. Find us on social media for extra content. Subscribe to our YouTube channel and hit the bell to get notified about live streams and new content. Tune in to our platforms every other Friday to watch the Exeter Biweekly Report, with recaps of recent events, updates from town departments, and messages from nonprofits in your area. If you head to our website, exeternh.tv, we invite you to sign up to our newsletter to receive monthly updates about new content, upcoming meetings, and more. We'd like to thank you for taking the time to watch Exeter TV and hope that you tune in to our other content as well.
Excuse me. Okay, as the time is 6:30 p.m., I will call the Town of Exeter Select Board meeting of October 15th to order. First half hour, the board will be interviewing three people for various committee openings: Housing Advisory Committee, Sustainability Advisory Committee, and the Tax Exemption and Credit Advisory Committee, which should be implemented fairly soon. And then we'll return back at 7 p.m. for regular business. So the board will be going into board interviews now. Thank you.
Thank you for tuning in to Exeter TV. Exeter TV is the town's public and government access channels, available on Comcast Channels 6 and 22. Channel 6 is your channel. If you have an idea for a program, want to host your own talk show, or submit a film, we're here to get your content on television. On Channel 22, we bring you live and replay coverage of government meetings and other town updates. A third channel, Blue Hawk Media, is operated by SAU 16 and can be found on Channel 8, with all your school sports, events, and meetings. You can watch Exeter TV online at exeternh.tv, Apple TV, and on Roku. Find us on social media for extra content. Subscribe to our YouTube channel and hit the bell to get notified about live streams and new content. Tune in to our platforms every other Friday to watch the Exeter Biweekly Report, with recaps of recent events, updates from town departments, and messages from nonprofits in your area. If you head to our website, exeternh.tv, we invite you to sign up to our newsletter to receive monthly updates about new content, upcoming meetings, and more. We'd like to thank you for taking the time to watch Exeter TV and hope that you tune in to our other content as well. Thank you for tuning in to Exeter TV. Exeter TV is the town's public and government access channels, available on Comcast Channels 6 and 22. Channel 6 is your channel. If you have an idea for a program, want to host your own talk show, or submit a film, we're here to get your content on television. On Channel 22, we bring you live and replay coverage of government meetings and other town updates. A third channel, Blue Hawk Media, is operated by SAU 16 and can be found on Channel 8, with all your school sports, events, and meetings. You can watch Exeter TV online at exeternh.tv, Apple TV, and on Roku. Find us on social media for extra content. Subscribe to our YouTube channel and hit the bell to get notified about live streams and new content. Tune in to our platforms every other Friday to watch the Exeter Biweekly Report, with recaps of recent events, updates from town departments, and messages from nonprofits in your area. If you head to our website, exeternh.tv, we invite you to sign up to our newsletter to receive monthly updates about new content, upcoming meetings, and more. We'd like to thank you for taking the time to watch Exeter TV and hope that you tune in to our other content as well. Thank you for tuning in to Exeter TV. Exeter TV is the town's public and government access channels, available on Comcast Channels 6 and 22. Channel 6 is your channel. If you have an idea for a program, want to host your own talk show, or submit a film, we're here to get your content on television. On Channel 22, we bring you live and replay coverage of government meetings and other town updates. A third channel, Blue Hawk Media, is operated by SAU 16 and can be found on Channel 8, with all your school sports, events, and meetings. You can watch Exeter TV online at exeternh.tv, Apple TV, and on Roku. Find us on social media for extra content. Subscribe to our YouTube channel and hit the bell to get notified about live streams and new content. Tune in to our platforms every other Friday to watch the Exeter Biweekly Report, with recaps of recent events, updates from town departments, and messages from nonprofits in your area. If you head to our website, exeternh.tv, we invite you to sign up to our newsletter to receive monthly updates about new content, upcoming meetings, and more. We'd like to thank you for taking the time to watch Exeter TV and hope that you tune in to our other content as well.
As the hour is now 7 o'clock, we will commence the regular business meeting. Good evening, Exeter. Good evening to my colleagues on the board, respective town staff, those in attendance, and certainly those watching at home this evening. And welcome to the October 15th, 2024 Town of Exeter Select Board meeting. I'd like to start by introducing the board. And to my right, Selectman Dan Chartrand. Good evening.
Good evening, Mr. Chair.
Our Vice Chair, Selectwoman Molly Cowan. Good evening.
Hi, everyone.
Our clerk, Selectwoman Julie Gilman, had an unavoidable conflict this evening, but we have the four of us, so all votes will be 4-0 tonight, hopefully 4-0. Joanna. Selectwoman Nancy Belanger, good evening.
Good evening, everyone.
Our town manager, Mr. Rustine.
Good evening.
Our recording secretary, Joanna Bartel, good evening. My name's Nico Papakostandis. I'll open it up for public comment. There are no members of the public physically in the Novak room, and I don't see anybody online. But I would like to, before we jump to the approval of the minutes, speak to a piece of correspondence that is in our packet, and I'm going to bring it up now during public comment because the resident that wrote the letter to the board indicated that she wished she could have been here for public comment this evening. However, she had unavoidable conflict. So I'm not going to read her letter. It is in the packet. It's regarding Swayze Parkway and the work that we're going to be doing down there, which was a result of a collaborative meeting between the select board and the trustees back on September 30th. I just want to take an opportunity to say to Ms. Swan and to everybody else in the public what I would say if she were here for public comment. And that's purely just to kind of very quickly go back a couple of years and note that in March of 22, there was a warrant article that proposed discontinuing the roadway from Water Street to the gazebo. It's a discontinuance of the roadway, and it passed rather overwhelmingly. And as part of the warrant article, it needed to go through a couple of legal steps for it to become binding, the last of which was going before a probate judge, and that ultimately happened in January of 23. At that time, the roadway became discontinued from, as I said, from the Water Street entrance to the gazebo. There was a subsequent citizens petition back in March of 23 that also passed. However, that was not binding because the judge had already discontinued the road. So that citizens petition, which I believe called for an opening of the complete roadway one way, was not binding because that part of the road had already been discontinued. Coming up with a solution as to how to open up the Newfields Road entrance to the gazebo and allow folks to come in and park safely and enjoy the river was delayed for the better part of 2 years due to the siphon project. And in fact, because of the siphon project, the roadway stayed closed until the completion, which happened just a few months ago in August of 24. However, during that period of delay, the select board still met occasionally with the Swayze Park trustees, worked with town staff. There were some volunteers that came forward with some ideas, and we bantered back and forth on some potential ways that we could make this work. But ultimately, the public works director and the highway superintendent came up with the plan that we all heard about on September 30th. And I won't get into the whole plan because we just heard about that. But after a few meetings with town staff, with me, with the Swayze Park trustee chair, Swayze Park trustees held a site walk back in mid-September, which was an open public hearing. And I believe that's the meeting that Ms. Swan speaks about in her letter to us when she was walking through the parkway and she saw folks standing around. That would have been that site walk. Ultimately, the trustees joined the select board on September 30th. The trustees and the select board were in unanimous agreement that this was a good temporary solution, which would allow folks to come in the Newfields entrance, be able to turn their cars around safely. There are several parking spaces for those that have physical limitations. And again, Public Works has designed this in a way that cars will be able to safely turn around, cars will be able to safely park. There is some green space that's being taken up, but that green space was not usable green space. And in fact, the elimination of this green space for the turnaround is actually going to improve the drainage of that area. So we're actually making an improvement. And finally, this is going to assist us greatly in the coastal resiliency grant that we were just approved for. So I just want to reiterate that that was sort of the timeline. Nothing here was sprung out at anybody. Again, it's a temporary solution, and everything that's being done can be revised later if folks come up with a more permanent plan. And then the last but not least, in terms of the financing of this, portion of the state road aid that was provided to the town during the pandemic is being used, so this will not go on the warrant. Nothing is coming out of the general fund budget. And with that, I'll close, but I just wanted to give that summary for folks that may have been confused, because I know it's been a couple years since that original warrant article passed. Any other comment from the board?
No, you covered it well for me. Thank you.
Yeah, I was going to say that is exactly the timeline as I understand it. It has been taken up occasionally by the board. It wasn't sort of a one meeting and done.
Right.
But I do apologize to Lori Zwan that we disappointed her. But I do think it's a good temporary solution, and we'll see how this plays.
Yep. That's right. With that, I will move to the approval of the minutes. Presumably, we've all reviewed the September 30th, 2024 Select Board regular meeting minutes. Are there any revisions?
I only have one, Mr.
Okay.
Chair, and it's on page 5. Last paragraph, third sentence, transportation is, and there's a dollar sign, just has to have a 1.00. It's $1.
Very good. Any other revisions or amendments? Seeing none, I would entertain a motion to approve the Exeter Select Board regular meeting minutes of September 30th, 2024 as amended.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed? Motion carries 4-0. Thank you. We have 2 appointments to take up this evening. We interviewed several people this evening, the first of whom was Megan Spencer, who is applying for the Housing Advisory Committee. And Mr. Dean, is there a term on this?
There are.
4/30/27.
Thank you, Nancy.
Sorry,
Okay.
I looked
That's.
them up.
Thank you, I appreciate that. I would entertain a motion then to appoint Megan Spencer to the Housing Advisory Committee for a term to expire on April 30th, 2027.
As a full member, so
As a
moved.
full member, yeah.
Second.
Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, opposed? Motion carries 4-0. And I would entertain a motion to, and is there a term on this?
April 2026.
April 2026, great. I would entertain a motion to appoint Denise Short to the Sustainability Advisory Committee for a term to expire in April 2026.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed? Motion carries 4-0, and we want to thank Denise and Megan for volunteering for their respective committees. Jumping into our discussion items.
Mr. Chair?
Yes,
I apologize for not warning you previously. I am going to recuse myself on this matter.
okay, thank you. First discussion item this evening is the Riverwoods pilot agreement. Mr. Dean, seeing nobody here to represent Riverwoods, could you just walk us through? This is the annual agreement that the board reviews around this time every year.
Yes, this is the tax agreement with Riverwoods, the annual tax agreement. It spells out in what ratios the Riverwoods company pays real estate taxes to the town of Exeter. Under Part A, the residential units pay the full tax rate. Under Part B, the buildings for healthcare residents do not pay any tax. That's state, municipal, county, or school. And under Part C and D, it talks about the land use for the final calculation of density under the land use ordinance, pays the full tax rate. That's just the land tax. And Part D is current use tax. And this is a standard agreement that's in the standard form that it is every year for us.
Okay. Are there any questions of Mr. Dean?
I have none.
Okay. You have none. In your motion, in the motion, Mr. Dean, obviously, the board will be signing. The board will be signing the agreement. Do you need the entire agreement read, or do you just need a summary in the motion?
You just need a summary in the motion. And it would be to move to approve the annual tax agreement between Riverwoods and the town.
Do you want to get the woods, the bridge, and the boulders in the motion? We've done that previously?
That would be good. Yes,
Okay.
thanks.
And I would entertain a motion to approve the Riverwood, the agreement between the town of Exeter and the Riverwoods Company at Exeter, New Hampshire, which includes the woods, the ridge, and the boulders, for the annual tax agreement, and authorize the select board to sign said agreement.
So moved.
Second.
Is there any discussion? Mr. Dean, did everything get covered in that motion?
Sounds good.
Okay. A motion and a second, no further discussion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries 3-0. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chartrand. Jeez, I always do that. Okay, next up, we have Scott Marsh from MRI with us this evening to give us a final reval report after, about a month of maybe hearing from folks and since you were last here, so welcome.
Yes. Thank you.
Look forward to your update. Thank you.
Scott Marsh, Municipal Resources, Contracted Assessing Agent. This is going over the results of the final revaluation summary. We mailed out notices at the end of July, and then taxpayers had an opportunity to schedule online or could call our office to set up appointments, basically through the month of August. Then we held hearings from the end of August into early September. In total, we had 382 hearings. Roughly 218 were in person, 100 were in phone hearings, and 28 we held Zoom hearings for as well. We try to accommodate people the best we can.
Is that a lot of hearings?
Actually, no. For the amount of properties that you had, we've been seeing 5-6% is pretty much average standard, is what we've been seeing with the large increase that's been occurring in property valuations throughout southern New Hampshire here over the last few years. And it's just getting, a lot of people are coming in. The main concerns are obviously the increase in their property value, what kind of impact that's going to have on their taxes, and then just verifying the property information on their, on their property themselves. We also had dealt with roughly 36 people who could not attend a hearing, and so we contacted them afterwards after the hearing process was, and we're still contacting, and people are contacting me weekly, I would say, and we're still going over things as people call in. Overall, we looked at 2 years' worth of sales from April 1st of 23 to April 1st of 25. I mean, wait a minute, we're in 24, sorry, 22 to 24. I'm jumping a year ahead. I got more of these.
Please don't rush it.
Overall, the town's median ratio for that time period was 102%. For the 1 year period of time, it's 1%. And I also look at the time period that the state actually looks at, which is September 1st to October 30th, September 30th. So they do 6 months each side. And that ratio actually is coming out at 95%, which is showing us that values are still increasing. The number of sales seems to have slowed down, but the valuations aren't reducing at all. We had CODs, coefficient of dispersion, and PRDs. Those are measures of how close to the median ratio properties are. The guidelines are to be less than 15 for your coefficient of dispersion. We were at 8%. And for a PRD, 0.98 to 1.03, and we're at 1.01. So again, it's showing that the overall equity of properties is in line with what we've been seeing, and properties are there. Overall, the town's total value went up roughly 55%. As you can see on the chart here, residential properties went up 61%, condominiums went up 61%, The residential vacant land also went up 61%. Manufactured homes, as we had talked about before, saw 146% on average increase. And then commercial properties went up roughly 35%. We're at the process here, we've locked all our values pretty much, they're finalized, waiting for the board's approval so we can work on getting your MS1 completed to get tax rates set. Here to answer any questions that you guys may have.
Any questions for Mr. Marsh?
I have one. You
Please.
said that people were still reaching out to you?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, but the cutoff date was August 26th?
That was the time
How
to
much longer?
We meet with people as long as we can, because
Is
we
there,
want.
is there a deadline? Is there a
Yeah,
cutoff?
well, once we submit the MS1, that's when your values are locked, because we need to submit them to the state so they can set your tax rate. So we can't be changing valuations at that point in
And
time.
we don't know that date yet, so.
No, we're in
We
the
want the
process.
public to know you can still do it, but it's not an indefinite amount of
Correct.
time that they can still reach out to.
What would happen here is, at this point, once we do lock those values, if people do have questions or we do find that there are issues, they'll have to go through the abatement process
Thank
at
you.
that point in time. We are in the process of notifying everybody who had a hearing or had their valuation changed during this process. We're sending out letters now to let them know what the results were of those hearings and what the changes were.
Thank you.
Do you have a rough percentage of how many changes were made?
I do not have a list of all the properties. What we've been seeing roughly is around 25% don't see any change. About 75% are seeing some type of change. Most of them are relatively minor, type of flooring, bathroom count, things like that. And then we had some where we had some, like we had to change a whole neighborhood we found based on the sales were a little bit too high. So we don't just change that individual property, we change everybody on the street, so.
Okay.
I do have a listing of all of which I could provide, but I didn't have a breakdown out of.
I was just interested,
things.
like, the number of,
Yeah, what we've
folks
been
that-
seeing
yeah.
is around 25% are no change, and then the rest are from there.
okay. Mr. Chartrand?
So I want to, we've talked about it a little bit, but I want to dig in on the manufactured or mobile home and
Yes, sir.
why there's such a large percentage increase there.
Sure. Part of the manufactured home, why the percentage, I believe part of the reason why the percentage is so large is because the valuation started out so low. If you take a $30,000 manufactured home and you put $50,000 increase in value to it, it's 100 and whatever percent increase. Whereas if you take that $400,000 or $500,000 home and it goes up $50,000, it's only a 5 or 10% increase. So that's where some of that percentage change is why it's so large, is because manufactured homes 5 years ago were selling for $30,000 and $40,000, and now they're $90,000 and $100,000. So in some cases, some went up over 200%.
Is that because they're kind of the entry level?
Yeah, that is definitely what it is. There's such a high demand for that entry-level property and very limited supply, so that's really what's driving the values, and we're not seeing any decline in that either.
And was there a significant percentage of the folks that asked for a hearing in that category?
What we saw was 20% of the hearings roughly, and 20% were also condominium owners that came in.
So 20% in the manufactured or mobile homes and 20% in condominiums?
Yeah, and it was roughly 5% commercial properties, and then the rest were the residential properties.
And what percentage of our housing is in the manufactured or mobile home?
I don't know what the percentage was as far as cost or
No,
valuation is.
overall.
Oh, you have roughly 1,000 properties that are manufactured homes, I believe.
I thought it was like 1,200.
So,
Yeah, so I think it's like 25%. I think we have 4,000
So
parcels here.
20% of the requests
1,000.
for hearings, it's kind of in the ballpark
Yes.
for where they are as a part of the overall structure of our housing.
Yes, and it was kind of what we were expecting to, based on our experience in other communities that we've had this problem.
Okay, thank you for answering my
No
questions.
problem.
Thank you. Selectman McCowen? Any other questions? Mr. Dean, what action, if any, do we take this evening? Or is this just a,
I don't believe the board needs to vote on anything unless Mr. Marsh thinks otherwise.
Yeah, if I could get the board to make a motion to accept the valuations
That's-
so that we can process with the MS1 And we can get you an itemized list of every property in town, for you to have. But at this point, we're just, so that we're able to finalize the MS1 information is what we're looking for.
So a motion to accept the valuations.
Even though you're still taking phone calls?
Yeah, again, if there's any change, I'm not expecting many more. I haven't had any this week so far, so. We can stop making changes too, and with the board, if that's what the board
Well,
prefers.
if we motion and vote,
Then we
then
won't wait.
that has to cut it off, I would say.
That's fine. We can do that.
Are you
Yes.
comfortable with that?
Yes, sir. Yeah, I'm not expecting any major changes.
Are we
so.
going to hear from our
Are
constituents?
we comfortable with that is the question?
I think what's driving this is we have to get the report
I get that.
evaluation in.
Yeah.
That's the main thing here.
What's the
Do you have any hearings scheduled?
We have an extension.
No, we
through
don't have any.
October 15th.
No,
So-
we've contacted everybody that's contacted us. It's just, I get stragglers calling me, hey,
So now the
I just
answer
found my
is-
notice,
So
that
now
type
the
of stuff.
answer will be it's too late.
Right, and you'll have to go through the abatement process type of thing. Yep, we can do that.
Okay, I'm comfortable with that.
Ralph, did you say we have an extension to October 15th? That's today.
MS1 extension
I'm
date.
not sure what it was.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
if
think
it
it
was
was
to
today.
today, then we'll be.
Oh, well,
I'll-
I
think it
I'll
was
update
today.
it. I'll change that when I get home.
I always like folks to be heard, but I would tend to agree. The deadline really was September 4th, and it's October 15th, so I think I would be comfortable.
And there is recourse, they can,
There, absolutely, absolutely. So you just need a motion to accept the MRI 2024 final revaluation summary report? Mr. Dean, or do you need anything else in that?
I think
That's-
that would work.
Totally accurate.
Then with that, I would entertain a motion to accept the 2024 final revaluation summary report prepared by Municipal Resources Incorporated.
so moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion passes 4-0. Thank you,
Thank
Mr.
you very
Marsh.
much.
Appreciate your help in the work with our citizens.
That's what we're here for.
Thank you. And our last agenda item this evening, we have our town planner, Mr. Dave Sharples, with us to review the final report of the downtown parking traffic pedestrian flow analysis.
I have something I want to show. Can I
Please.
take over that?
Yeah.
I don't know if that's a PDF. I don't know if I can flip the page with this, can I?
We'll find out.
Oh, look at that.
Perfect.
Thank you. Good evening.
Good evening.
Dave Sharples, town planner, as you said. And I'm here tonight at the request of the town manager asked for me to put together a memo and kind of come back, revisit the downtown parking, traffic, and pedestrian flow analysis study. This was completed by Stantec, and they did come before you and present the report that wasn't quite finalized on February 12th. And then, well, I don't know, about 5 months later, they submitted this final report, which is pretty much the same as what you saw, with a host of strategies. He did add one at our suggestion after the first one, because we were a little concerned if you're going to implement paid parking along Water Street, then you'd probably want to do some permit parking, because it's just going to push people out to, like the next spot and, and into some neighborhoods. So we wanted to kind of, we thought permanent parking would be a good thing to add to that if pay parking is implemented. So I'm here tonight to go over the 14 strategies that they did. Most of them you've heard, except I think the expand permit parking is a new one, and just kind of get initial reactions, because last week at the town manager's request, we had a meeting with myself, Melissa Roy, Fire Chief Pizon, Police Chief Stephen Poulin, Deputy Police Chief Josh McCain, the Public Works Director Steve Cronin, and the Economic Development Director Darren Winham. And we all went through these strategies because the town manager requested, let's see, what do we think of them? Are we supportive, we not supportive, what we recommended. So I provided you a spreadsheet that you have in your packet that says Stantec recommendation, lists the strategy, and then our staff input. So I was planning on just going down one by one. You can jump in and ask questions, or we could just get through them all and then we can open it up. But looking kind of for some direction on where you want to go. Okay. It's kind of timely. Like right now, if you're you want to move ahead with something that might require a warrant article or further research, we'd like to get started on it.
Of course.
Or not, go to the next steps and do a lot of research until we see if the select board wants to move forward with any of these recommendations.
Not to interrupt you, but
Yeah,
do you have
go ahead.
extra copies of the nice big one that you have? Is that what you have in front of you?
The big Excel spreadsheet?
Yes.
Because I'm blind, yeah.
I am too, that's why I'm asking you.
I have one. Does people need more?
I'm good with this.
Thank you. I can share, I can send it up and down the table if we need to, but I do appreciate it. Thank you so much.
I can read the small one, but I like this one. It's just,
Oh,
it's
so
just
much
better.
easier.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So I'll just hop in and we'll go down each strategy. I mean, Stantec went through all the utilization rates, all the math and data. I wasn't planning on doing that. Okay, and then I did include the entire packet.
Yep.
I mean, the entire report in there. But we just want to, I'll go through each strategy and then I'll tell you what staff recommends. The first strategy was share private parking supply. How it would work, would the town identify facilities that can absorb, nearby, high demand? We reach out to interested property owners, see if there's some sort of sharing situation with their parking. We recommend deferring this task until see what implementation of other tasks to help determine how much private supply is even needed at this point, if any. Moreover, this happens in the private sector without government involvement. If this is pretty routine, if someone's doing development downtown, they'll look for adjacent property owners, they'll talk to them, they'll look for deeded spots and so forth. That's going on, that does go on. I don't know how much there is out there, like in that, but or how much that is going on, but it just doesn't seem like a big issue that yet. The report said it, private and public parking together, when they went out there, and it wasn't the busiest day of the year, but it was this time of year. It was moving toward Thanksgiving when they did their data, and they did it on weekdays and peak times, and even visited on a weekend on a Saturday. And the highest they ever counted was 53% of our parking, private and public combined, was being utilized. So that's just a little over half. About half of the spaces were empty. So there really wasn't that kind of demand to. You're not up 85, 90%. Once you fill up the public, that's when private parking lots become desirable. And like if you look at Portsmouth just as an example, like a lot of private lots are there and they pay. You go in this private pay lots. We're not close to that. And then once you get there though, then people will see that as an avenue and start going on Spot Hero and renting their parking spots, or having parking spots for rent by the hour or what have you in those places. So we just don't feel we're there yet. It's a good idea, but we just didn't feel like we're there yet on that strategy. And I'm just going to keep moving on unless someone wants to talk more about them, and we can circle back if anyone's, establish short-term loading parking spaces. Currently, we only have 3 downtown, and they're kind of in a strange, well, at least like they're mid-block. There's one at mid-block right in front of where Otto is. That's always, I don't know, once during the day it fills up, like cars on either side, it's tough to get, it's only, I think it's a 30-foot space, if that. So not any tractor trailer or anything like that can come in. So kind of relook at that. We kick that around. If that's, we are supportive of that. And if the select board is supportive, the next step would be include engaging businesses, researching the ordinances, and preparing a proposed striping map and ordinance change, if any, and return to the board for review. So if approved at that point, then DPW will implement it in their striping program, when they do it in the spring, maybe not next spring or whatever.
Where are the other 2? There's one right by the town hall in front of the,
Yeah, there's one there, there's one at the town hall, there's one, and I believe,
one where the juicery just opened.
I believe so, yes.
So those are the 3.
Yeah.
One in front of Otto.
Yeah,
one
and
by-
yeah.
One by the town hall, and they're all on Water Street.
Well, this is front. No, oh, you mean yes, it's in front. It's in front of it, yes. So it is on water.
Okay.
It is on water, not front.
Those are
It is on
I do
water.
have the 3, right?
Yes.
And those are the only 3?
Yes, and we would think about, well, putting them, like, for example, the auto one might be better suited, we were talking about right after the pedestrian, where they're right after the crosswalk, right in front of the Sea Dog, right? Because that's where they're loading and unloading mostly anyway, and it makes sense because they can come around that corner, and instead of blocking the crosswalk like they do now, they can continue up, get away from the crosswalk, so they're not right there pinched, and they, so
Yeah.
take that spot and move it to the end, and then they can have room to back up and get out, and in theory, use it all day. You could also consider, we'd research this, but some places do it like, it's loading until noontime, and then you can park there.
Yeah. I think that's a good idea, the one you just mentioned. The one by the town hall, the ramp going up beside the town hall, that seems to work. It seems, because there's no parking there. They just kind of duck in, and there's enough room for them to duck because of that ramp. There's no parking right in front of the ramp by the town hall. So I would be loath to tamper with that one.
Yeah, I'm not saying we're moving them, we were just, like, they suggested it, we're just doing analysis, and
Yeah,
this
yeah.
is the kind of information we need.
And I don't know how the one in front of where the juicery just opened works, so I won't speak to that.
Yeah, we'd have to research it. We didn't do a lot, of research on this yet, so we just
Yeah.
wanted to see if it was something that,
Yeah.
the select board wanted us to look at further. We'd be happy to.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Are you okay?
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
So you talked about potential times, which I'm happy to hear. And one of the things that I was wondering about was, I don't know how early the delivery trucks start to come, but businesses start to open at 10. So,
Yep.
but you had said possibly noon, because one of the things that I brought up during those meetings we had was across from, like, the chocolatier in that block, and maybe putting those few parking spots, there's no parking as a loading zone, something. But anyway, you've got it. You're going to talk to the merchants. They live and breathe the stuff.
Yeah, I mean, noon was just an example. It
Yeah,
wasn't.
no,
It wasn't a
no,
proposal.
It was fine.
Yeah.
The only reason why I came
mean,
up with 10
reason-
o'clock was that's when a lot of the businesses tend to open, other than the restaurants. So, thank you.
Yeah, the reason why I brought that, like, I think noon is the Cambridge, Stantec did a study in Cambridge, and they don't allow any type of trucks over a certain vehicle weight or loading after noontime. Like, if you
Yeah,
don't,
it's
yeah,
okay.
it's close,
I just remember-
you can't get in there. You get,
One of the businesses at the other end of Water Street was talking about how the truck showed up with some supplies for her, and they left. They told her they couldn't deliver them. That was one of the examples.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so, thank you.
So we'll
Dave-
just make sure they have space, and plus it's a learning, curve too. You
Yeah,
gotta-
absolutely.
Is it helpful if we weigh in step by step?
However you would like to handle it. Yeah, that probably.
Would that
yeah.
be easier for you?
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to put you on, like,
No, I
you're
understand.
just hearing it, so if you have an opinion, if not, we can.
Is there, well, I would ask this, if the board collectively feels strong enough tonight to ask Mr. Sharples to further analyze it and come back to us. I don't see any harm in that. I think that's actually giving the direction he wants, right?
Correct, yes.
So, is there a consensus here that we'd like him to look into strategy number 2?
Yep.
Okay.
Okay. No strategy number 1, just to, yes, private supply, do we think we need to look at that at this point?
Well,
Or do you have an opinion? If you don't have an opinion yet, that's fine, me too.
I'd like to talk to you about that offline,
Okay, there you go.
because it involves specific businesses, and
Yep.
I don't want to throw their names out
Yep.
in
Yep.
public without their having been spoken to, so.
So are we fine with deferring 1 for this evening and
Yeah.
go ahead with
Okay.
2? Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Defer. All right.
All right, go ahead, Dave.
The big one, strategy 3, I think was the biggest one of all these recommendations. And that is to introduce pay parking. When they did their analysis, the numbers, I can pull them out, but the utilization rates were very high on Long Water Street and in the municipal lot. They exceeded 85% utilization rate, meaning out of every 10 spots, 8.5, well, there's not half a spot, well, we'll call it out of 20 spots, 17 of them are taken. That is an 85% utilization rate. Or every 100 spots, 85 are taken, 15 are empty. Once you get to that point, it starts becoming difficult to find those spots. They're intermittent, the demand is high enough to, usually that's what the experts say, that warrants paid parking once you're above a 85% utilization rate. We had that during the peak times, and it says right there, down to 85%, and encourage turnover. So you price parking to reduce it down to 85% or lower. So because it was pushing 100% at some times. And
In specific runs on Water Street. There's
basically on
specific
Water Street and the municipal lot combined. I mean, there's some spaces here and there, but it was pretty full, pretty much all the time, higher than you'd want that to encourage turnover. They also looked at, some people were staying, the average lengths were a little bit longer because we don't do any enforcement.
3.5
Yeah.
hours or more.
And then, some of the vehicles were staying, and some were staying a lot longer than the signs indicate. So that indicates people may not be, they're not coming down there to shop. They might be employees, they might be residences in the upper floors, they might be people that are, not there just to patronize a store
Right.
or a business or a couple and then move on.
So can I just ask a question?
Of course
It's
you can.
not here, and we just talked about it. Enforcement is not one of the options, the recommendations. Is it because that's beyond Stantec to include possibilities of how we could enforce parking? Because to me, all this stuff is great.
That's a
but
good
we have to
question.
We have, right? I mean, I think we have to, figure out enforcement to,
Enforcement of
parking regulation, our parking,
without pay parking.
With,
well, even with.
Well, that's the enforcement in and of itself, is when you introduce paid parking, you get a civilian or civilians, depending on, how many days you do it, what the hours you do it, and they are enforcement, and the revenue from it pays for them to enforce it. The police have been pretty clear, I think, to this board, to the town manager.
I'm not even going there on that one anymore.
Yeah,
but yes.
to enforce timed parking, what's out there now
Right,
is.
because one of the things I was thinking, we have statistics at least to go by, maybe a part-time person that can do peak times and weekend, whatever. But I wasn't seeing it, that's why I was wondering.
Oh, yeah, I did all, paid parking would be part of it, in the
Right, but if
enforcement.
they just stay after their meter runs out, right?
Who?
Paid parking,
Yep.
how would that be enforced?
Well, it depends on what technology you utilize, but a lot of them are just handhelds now. They, say you do a pay-by-plate.
Yeah.
And it expires, that usually sends a message to the enforcement officers.
Okay, so we still
Handheld,
need,
that this is
an
expired,
officer.
or you
Yeah.
walk along, you scan it,
Got
or
it.
you pay and display, you walk along and you look, and if it's, if the time is past, a little
Yeah.
ticket in the window. I mean, it depends on which one you
Right.
do.
I know
But
there's
they
a lot.
enforce
I
it,
have
and if
no
you stay
experience.
over, they ticket.
So we're gonna need to know,
Yes, we'll need to develop a whole program. What we're trying to do tonight is just to get a sense of the board as to whether that's something you want to move ahead with.
Well, if I could jump in?
Please.
The report is very clear that there are certain areas that have such high utilization for such long periods of time that in those areas, we need to go to some type of paid parking with enforcement. And I am in favor of your suggestion of bringing a consultant on and helping us develop a program to do this.
Yes, me too.
Yeah, that next step
And it's
would be a
important.
consultant, wouldn't be implementation. We'd look at, because we'd come back with a program that, trying to get, like, the revenue would cover, the expenses, it would be, and maybe additional funding to improve the area, the walkability, the parking, and, make improvements to the whole system downtown. You can use those revenues to fix the sidewalks or what have you, or add
Yeah.
amenities.
I'd also love to see the consultant potentially fine-tune our approach so that short-term, quick-hit parking is not charged. So maybe a short amount of time. But again, this is for the consultant to present to
Because
us.
that was a concern when we were looking at Lincoln Street,
Yeah,
was the short, going into.
yeah, someone that's just running a
Yep.
quick errand, it's not going to be there long. Do we really want to make them, or can we forego the revenue, let them have their 15 minutes, half an hour, and
Yeah, a lot of the places do that. You can set that up. They still have to do something, because how do you know? If, if they park there and they don't do anything to
Right.
trigger the time, then you don't know how long they've been there. So
Right.
usually that comes along with it. You get on the Park app or whatever, say it's Park Mobile or something. You get on, you put your license plate in, and then it just doesn't charge you for 15 minutes.
because in the end, this is not as much about revenue as it is about creating turnover.
Right.
Correct.
That's what we want.
Correct, but you don't really want to, run a loss. It should
Absolutely.
it should kind of
Break
pay
even.
for itself.
Pay for
Yeah, it
itself.
isn't
Yeah.
about
Yeah.
extra revenue, but it's about enforcing, creating turnover, viability for, businesses.
And one more plug for the public. The Police Department does enforce our winter parking ban. So we're talking about no enforcement right now, but that is enforced. Thank you.
Thank you. So, yes, we'll go ahead and we'll figure out the next steps and come back to you.
That's my take.
Or,
Yeah, and I'm following your take. I guess I just, before we made any decisions, would like to know more about how it's going to work.
for
This,
example.
and just having, as you said, somebody come in and explain the process of how somebody would, if they were just running the quick errand, as opposed to parking there for an hour or 2 hours, or just to get a better understanding of how that works.
Well, that was what we were supportive of it, but the next step would be determining that strategy toward implementation and coming back with options and so forth. Just like, we just want to know, is this something that we should keep exploring, or should it?
I think it's worth exploring.
Okay.
Again, the report is very clear that there are areas that need this.
Yep.
If we want them to turn over appropriately.
Okay.
Great. So the next one would be expand permit parking. And I was responsible for this in the sense that I kind of pushed for this and they agreed, because if you put paid parking and you got 100% or 90%, well, those people that aren't there for a few minutes or, to shop, the employees that, or, people, residents or whatever that are staying there, they're not going to park there anymore usually. They're going to go somewhere as close as they can.
Right.
That's free, So there's already an issue on, I don't know, an issue. There's a lot of parking on Elliott Street and Elm Street, particularly Elm. Elm's the one
Elm's
closer to
closer.
us.
Yeah.
Elm's closer. I get them confused.
I do too, but
Elm, is like 40, I think 44. They're not striped, but about 44 to 47 cars can fit on Elm Street on both sides. And I mean, if school's in session, that's where they are. And it's tough to even, sometimes, go two ways. I mean, you kind of, so I think something like that pushes them there. It's all with the consultant, but look at permit too, So you don't kind of just take a problem and put it somewhere else, or
That was
put
my
it in a
concern.
neighborhood and so forth. And maybe there's a
Yeah.
program where, the people that live on the street and, get a permit with their registration. So if they have people over, they could pull out and, and have a permit at no charge with their car or something to that effect, something like that.
Yeah, I don't want
So-
to push it out and cause that problem in the other neighborhoods with limited crosswalks and lighting and,
Yeah. And there seems to be a high demand for it, because my understanding is that we have like, how many spots? 6 or 8 or something permit on Chestnut? Yeah, 8. And they're,
Yeah, and the only other question I have on that.
They're taken and
if I
used.
could, is that, would that be the same permitting application that was just approved at our last meeting with the 3
oh, I don't know.
That was
things and enforcements? I just
Pleasant Street.
Just keep that in mind. The Pleasant Street, we just changed the
It's for
application.
winter parking.
Oh, yeah, yeah. I mean, I don't think you'd have multiple permits programs. You'd probably fold them all into.
Fold it in, yeah.
If you could,
Okay.
but I don't know too much about that. But that's what
Yeah,
a consult,
just-
like,
just throwing it
that's what
out
we
there.
would figure out and
When
come
you're
back to you.
brainstorming.
If you're supportive of moving ahead with this.
Mr. Chartrand.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, I think this is also essential, not just because we don't want to take a problem and move it elsewhere, but a significant amount of this parking is taken up, as you indicated, by folks that are associated with Phillips Exeter Academy. And they got approval for a rather large building with parking that, as far as I can tell, is barely used, because all those folks are parking on the street because we're not regulating it. It's like the Wild West on Elm and Elliott and Court and Front and Spring. So I would be very much in favor of bringing the same or a different consultant on to help us organize a permit parking program for these streets in these areas.
Agreed. There's a lot of parking, not only in the parking garage, which I think there's a lot, but even behind it. In the whole facilities, there's several parking lots that have low utilization. But yeah, if I worked at the cafeteria, that's right. I'd park there instead of parking and walking 10 minutes or 5 minutes.
And we're not incentivizing them to use the organization's parking that is there, that has been approved for that reason, and we need to do that.
Yeah. And they encourage it. I talked with them, and they encourage them to do that, to park there, but they can't make them, and, they can't stop them from parking on a public street, so.
A huge part of why these consultants told us we don't have a lack of parking space is because of those academy spaces. They have to be used, and it will resolve a lot of our high usage in these core areas right around our historic downtown.
Yeah, I have noticed even in front of the Historical Society, when I brought it up before, they thought it was maybe the construction workers. It wasn't. There are cars that are just staying there all day, and there's very limited parking in front of the Historical Society.
So could there be an avenue by which if there were multiple cars belonging to, a place, they could get multiple permit, like one permit per car?
Yeah, you'd need one permit per
One
car.
permit per car, and then would there be, you're talking about people coming to visit, could there be space enough to have maybe 1 or 2 visitor parking?
Yeah, I'd have to look into that, because at first, how do you distinguish they're a visitor or not? What would stop someone from just using that without a permit every day? But good point.
something-
I'd
and
have to
just-
figure it
Just
out.
like, instead of having like a third permit that doesn't go used in case you have a visitor, or having a visitor park, just having 1 or 2 spots for visitor parking. And
I got
you're
you,
right.
yeah.
How do you know if it's a visitor? But
Yeah, that's part of it. I mean, we might leave streets open, okay, we're not going to permit this street, so but I think a couple of streets need it, because if those
Agreed.
people move, because the people down here are going to want to go somewhere, we got to give them someplace close.
so if we do permitted parking, how do we enforce that?
That would be the same. It would be the person that does the enforcement on the paid parking. They loop around to the permitted streets and they check if your car has a permit. And
Okay.
if it doesn't, then it's just like this lot back here. Technically, we have permit cards that we hang in our thing, and you're only supposed to. They would do that. Just look along, and if you don't have a permit, then they do the enforcement.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay.
Any
So-
other questions on that one before we move on? Okay, thanks, Dave.
You're welcome. Strategy 5, parking wayfinding. Staff is supportive of this regardless if paid parking is instituted and/or permit parking, but we'd need to know which way before preparing. Probably want to know which way, so we're supportive of this, but I think it's all part of the paid like, if you don't do permit parking, you wouldn't need permit-only signs, like that's, so you really need to know the strategy before you put a sign package together, but it sounds like we'll research that.
Specifically in the report, it referenced the hidden parking lots, the McCreel lot that's open to the public, the half that is open to the public, the Court Street lot, which is often not, people don't realize there's parking there. So there's some that aren't really, they can't be seen from Water Street, and they definitely zeroed in on, there was a need for wayfinding for those. So but you're right, it's part of the overall strategy of all these recommendations interlock to some degree.
Yeah, you could do a little bit of it now, like just say, okay, where is the public parking? And have a sign with the same size, coloring, and so forth, and put them around. But there is an element that, depending on what you do, paid parking, I think it's going to be different signage that's needed. But it sounds like if you're supportive of it, we'll figure it out, like if you're supportive of the wayfinding signage.
Where's our parking lot on Court Street that I'm missing? Are we
Yeah.
talking about the Parks and Rec building? Because
I didn't say Court Street.
I'm sorry,
Oh,
I
you
missed.
did, yeah.
Or did I say
You
Court?
did,
I meant.
but that's okay.
I meant Center, I'm sorry, I missed.
Center, okay. All right.
Center and the McCreel lot that is open to the public. Those are two that really can't be seen from Water Street.
Thank you, I thought I was losing my mind for a moment.
I misspoke, my apologies.
Are we good on that one? Or is that-
Yes.
Okay. Strategy 6, parking ambassadors downtown. Staff would recommend deferring this strategy until it is determined what other strategies will be implemented. And we also question the viability of this strategy, given the size of Exeter and so forth, and the availability to rely on, young volunteers to, enforce this. I think, I don't know, we question whether it would be a viable solution here.
I think in theory, when they presented it, it sounds great, but it's not.
Get the kids involved, right, but it really
I think
isn't.
it's practical. for
Not in
us.
this labor market
No.
currently.
No, it'd be tough to get them, keep them, train them.
Where do,
Yeah, the
yeah,
amount of
where do they
abuse that
come
they
from?
might be
Yeah, where do they
getting
come
from
from?
people that we can't control yet, no.
Yeah, it seemed like something that was a great idea, but it just, it was a good thought, but I don't know how
Good
viable it
community
is.
fun thing, but, yeah, no.
Yeah. And I think they approached it as, it wasn't even, you didn't enforce it, you just kind of, ambassadors would just say it's paid parking, but
To
you wouldn't.
talk about it.
Yeah, and talk about it and
Welcome to
encourage
town. This is
people.
where
And
you can park.
so it would be like only for the people that, if people didn't want to do it, then there would be no penalty. It seemed a little,
Yeah.
just not ready for it, I don't think, here. Okay. Strategy 7. It said improve markings and signage for bicycles. May use full lane, paint sharrows, kind of get that out there, put signs up where there are bicycle parking. We have a couple of, 5-stall, I think five stall bikes, or maybe even 10. Parking bike racks, and then we have a couple of singles, down by next to the town hall, so just sign those so people are aware. We were supportive of this for what makes sense from a public safety perspective. And we needed more specific detail before considering implementation. So if the select board is supportive of this, we will put it in as part of the whole parking, wayfinding, signage strategy.
I'm in support.
Yeah, me too. Part of
right.
pedestrian.
Consensus down here?
Bike
Support?
pedestrian thing too at some point, so.
Thank you.
Yeah, okay.
I think just to put a note in there, and it's a slightly off point, but we do have to find a way to have some street in the downtown that doesn't have angled parking so that bicyclists are not in danger of being hit by people backing out from angled parking. Just this is, we can't really say our downtown is multimodal when we have angled parking everywhere. It doesn't really work with bicyclists, so I don't know if that's so much in the report. Maybe it's kind of subliminally there with their attempt to get rid of angled parking on Water Street next to the town hall. Somehow we've got to make it a little more multimodal, and eliminating some angled parking is the way that will happen. So just to throw that in there, because I don't think that's really what their recommendation that you're grappling with is, but long-term, we've got to find a way to make our downtown more multimodal.
Yeah, I don't disagree. I think we talked about this with them, and I mean, there's the problem with the downtown, is the buildings are set. You're not going to move them any further apart, and you have your sidewalks, which I think are minimum width right now. So you don't want 4-foot sidewalks. They're 8 feet out there, and maybe a little larger in some spots, which is great to comfortably pass. Multiple people. But then it's tough. Where do you get the space? Where do you find that? And they were like, that's why they thought Sharrows, like actually, going through the downtown, if you're on a bike, you act like a car.
Yeah.
You are in the car lane. The problem with that is the experienced cyclists that do this all the time, that bike up to Portsmouth or go down, they can do that. I mean, they're going the speed limit or more. They can keep up with traffic. It's like the family. It's the kids. That's the trick. Is how do we get that? And they didn't really have many answers for that, but they did put a bike lane. I'll get to that one. They did put a bike lane with a parallel parking, but that comes with its own concerns. But we'll talk that in a minute.
Sounds good.
Yeah. Strategy. All right. Well, this is we did 7. This is strategy 8, but it's the second 7 in the report. It was a typo that I found. But establish a new truck route. So basically, take trucks, because the select board can determine where trucks go through town, and you can put limits on, gross vehicle weight to go through, and establish a truck route that doesn't go through downtown. They seem to indicate that the downtown through trucking could be slowing things down a bit. We recommended further investigation on this strategy, as we were kind of unclear on what through trucking issues there are in the downtown.
Okay, I thought that there were, wouldn't we have to go through the state, because they're being diverted through downtown, because we have, 4 routes that go through downtown? So
Yeah,
that is a,
Yeah, with DOT.
Yeah, we'd have to work
Right.
through a process.
Yeah, okay.
It would have to be here, then the commissioner. It's just like going down to 25,
Right.
speed limit. You have to
Right.
kind of involve DOT to let that happen, and it's the state routes. But they would have
Like
some.
4
but
or 6
I guess we weren't really.
remember.
We're like, this strategy should be deferred until we have a clearer picture of a problem, if any. I just don't know. They really didn't identify
right, and then we'd have to be
one
careful.
specifically, but I mean, I can see the value of 18-wheelers not, coming through town, but.
The 18-wheelers wouldn't be delivering to our local people, right? Our local stores, that's a bit much.
No, I don't think so. I mean, I've seen some pretty big ones.
They wouldn't be.
Okay.
No, but this is more through trucking.
Yeah, okay.
They come through downtown and kind of slow things down. But you could have an issue if they have some other implementations here that with that, I'll get to them later, but like, the reconfiguration of the bandstand intersection, that could start coming into play where, stopping and starting where, through trucks can go through right now. They don't, if they're coming, they can go right through. The only time they have to stop is coming one way up Water Street. They can go and they can take a left without stopping, and then they can go straight through.
Yeah, the only
But once
place-
these start, big trucks start stopping, you can get some backups.
The only place I can think of where there's just no way that they can go through without taking up both lanes is in front of the Sea Dog. If they're coming into downtown,
Yeah.
they literally, you have to let them go. I mean,
Yeah.
going out of town, I haven't, experienced that much in the morning or at night, but I have experienced them coming into town.
Yeah, I mean, they're not ideal to come through like such a tight area, but is it worth exploring a new truck route to send them around the downtown somehow? Like send them up to, send them up to Exit, well, you wouldn't do 10 because of that, the can opener there under the bridge. Maybe send them to Exit 9, and come down to 111 to Brentwood, or wherever they're going, figure out different truck routes. I mean,
So it has to be explored.
yeah, we thought it would, defer it for now, and further investigation to see if there was a problem.
Thoughts?
Comfortable with that.
Okay. Okay, strategy 10. Adjust zoning for small-scale development. I'm going to recommend that this strategy, staff recommends that this strategy is reviewed by the planning board, because as staff, we're concerned that the amendments could lessen the incentive for MUND developments if since the MUND provisions already reduce parking requirements as an incentive to provide affordable housing. So if you kind of reduce that parking, and then it reduces the incentive for, one of the incentives for the MUND. But that said, it is up to the planning board to do zoning amendments, and I'm gonna, without objection, I'd just bring it to them to see what their thoughts are on an amendment.
That would be the respectful thing to do,
Yeah.
since it's their turf.
Got it. All right, strategy 11. Revise the winter parking ban. This one was multiple ways you could do it. Right now, it's November 15th to April 15th? Is that what it is, or December 15th?
November, is it?
November 15th to
No, it's
April?
December.
December 1st.
December
December
1st.
Yes.
Yep.
To April,
To March 15th.
March 15th. Okay, so you got December, March. So 4.5 months. And it's that 4.5 months. They've talked about, there's various ways to revise it, either call them, like, don't have a parking ban, winter parking ban until you call it. We spoke with staff about this, and staff is still researching, investigating this strategy. There are a lot of moving parts to any change to the current ban. If you're going by a storm-by-storm one, there's blue lights that they put up, because how do you tell people? Not everyone, gets, signs up for notifications, so forth. And then you'd have to start towing and, actively towing during this. But there are other ones, like Manchester does one side of the street, like they do parking bans on Tuesdays and Thursdays on this side of the street. So like, they move, so they can clear a side and clear a side. Not saying that's a good thing, but there's a lot of different ways to do it. We were nervous about it. We were concerned about doing it right, and it would take a lot more research. If there's no need, then we wouldn't do any research on this and leave it as is, or we would, try to investigate this further.
Mr. Chartrand?
I think, and I understand there's a lot of inertia on this. We've had pretty much a straight ban on public parking overnight during the winter, and I understand the benefits of that. But I think we do need to look at a system that allows folks more leeway. So, not saying right now, it's not a crisis, but I think over the next year or two, we should look at being less restrictive than we are now. Find a way.
Okay.
That's my take on it. But I understand that it's not something we can do right now, because we've done it a certain way for a long time. And there's inertia to that, and we need to build up the will amongst the various town departments to allow folks to park overnight during the winter.
Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I'm with you there. I also remember, wasn't that long ago, there was a citizens petition that passed overwhelmingly to ban the winter parking ban, and the select board later that summer reinstated the parking ban based on recommendations by both police chief, fire chief, and public works director. So while I'm in total favor of revisiting lifting the ban, I'd want to hear from the three current chiefs, well, two chiefs and public works director, all of whom have changed hands since that time.
Yep.
And maybe get a perspective on safety concerns, and then also explore how we could go about maybe doing it storm by storm, although, I mean, I'm recalling my days living in Boston, and it worked, and that was pre-internet and pre-cell phone and they came out with a bullhorn, and you had to move your car.
There are ways to get this done. It's going to take a little bit of time.
Yeah.
It's going to take a little bit of will amongst those three departments with your leadership. But I would like to see it happen. It's very popular with our constituents. And it makes sense. It's a resource that we're completely eliminating the use of. And is that a good enough reason? You know, the fact that that's the way we've always done it, given the will of the voters.
And I agree with you, I think, but from a safety standpoint, with having, two new chiefs and a new public works director, get a fresh set of eyes, ears, and voice. Selectman Belanger.
Yeah, so in the meantime, I understand that there's I don't know if you talked to DPW about they have a proposal or some ideas on some extra winter parking while we still have a ban until we modify it or look at the options. So are they done with, do you know if they're ready to propose that or?
I think so. I think they mentioned that. I mean, this
Okay.
is not that.
Yeah, I know.
This is going
I'm
to
just trying
move
in the meantime.
quickly.
type of thing.
Yeah.
okay.
And I think it
So
was just a
Mr.
matter of
Chair, maybe
designating, yeah.
In the meantime, we could ask them to come and see what they propose for options until we revisit the winter parking ban. Thank you.
Love to hear that.
So what I'm hearing is I wrote, continue to explore this and possibly come back with some options.
Over the next year or two.
Yeah. Yeah.
We'd like that.
Okay.
It's not
Sounds
a
good.
10-year aspiration, it's a 2-year aspiration.
Well, now we're getting into some exciting ones.
Yes, yeah.
Strategy 12, reconfigure the bandstand intersection. This one was presented at February 12th. You can see over right here. This is the bandstand, and it is not moving. It is staying in its current location in this. And it's just essentially adding green space on this whole area to just extend, the public space in front of the town hall. And because right now, you come down here and you go around, the traffic goes around here and drives up here. After this, this contemplates a 4-way stop here, which right now you come this way and you have to stop right here. You're stopping in this direction. You come here, you have to yield. It's a
You have to
yield
stop.
sign, but a lot of people stop anyway, they're stopped because
no line of sight.
when it's busy, maybe at nighttime when there's nobody around, people go through, but every time I drive through here, there's usually, 2 or 3 cars stacked up here and they're all stopped. It's a yield sign, but it's essentially a stop. There's a stop sign coming up String Bridge. When you come off String Bridge, there's a stop sign. So there's really already a 3-way stop. The only thing that's not stopped is when you're coming from Great Bridge and you come down here, there's no stop sign, and you come and you can take a left. You can actually take a left without stopping. But you would stop here and then take a left onto this side and you'd travel. They would make these parallel spots. I think there's 6 or 7, 8 of them there. It would be effective. This would effectively lose as this concept is designed. There's 29 spaces existing, 21 spaces after the reconfiguration. So you'd lose about 8 spaces to do this. But this would have to be. This is simply a concept plan. So staff looked at this. And while staff did fully support the concept, further investigation and engineering is warranted before a recommendation could be made. If supported by the select board, the next step would be start engaging in an engineering forum to kind of look at this to see if this is even feasible, if this was. Or there's like a third option, maybe you just kind of hold off on this and what, we got a lot of things going on and but if it's supportive, maybe, maybe it gets in the CIP in a future year or something like that. But we didn't want to wanted to bring it up, see if there's any support for it, so we could either move ahead with it or not. To see if it was feasible,
I like it. I mean, I like the green space. I think, 8 spaces is 8 spaces, but I guess I would ask, the 8 spaces, can you trade those off to make, with that 4-way stop, is that going to make that intersection safer?
Definitely.
And I would presume that it would make it safer, and I think you could sell losing 8 spaces to create a safer walking, driving, cycling environment for folks downtown. So I would like to see more analysis on this. Mr. Chartrand?
I think this concept, and obviously the voters are going to ultimately have to approve anything related to this because it'll have to go on the warrant. But I think this concept would take a beautiful downtown and make it an absolute gem. To create that kind of public space adjacent to our most important public building, both historically and in terms of aesthetics, I think it's a home run. It also makes that intersection safer, no doubt. But in the end, the voters would have to approve this. But I would like us to not lose track of this. But I don't want it to derail the lower level improvements that we've discussed earlier in your spreadsheet here. So I think this is off in the future, but very important not to lose track of.
Selectwoman Belanger?
Yeah, I love having the green space downtown. For me, that's, I do think safety is important, but I love the connection of the town hall and that bandstand and our brass band and people being able to put chairs out there. As long as the safety is there, and we'd have to look more into that. And then we have that little road that's cut off right now on the other side of the street. We talked about, it's got a construction sign on it right now.
Yeah.
So we'll need to look to see if is that permanently going to be closed?
That's not ours.
Right, but that would kind
No,
of
that would stay
interfere with that
open.
intersection. That would still stay open? Okay.
Yeah, it's this one right
It was a
here.
concern when we were meeting
Yeah,
with the consultant.
Yeah, that would probably be something, yeah, we'd have to, it's right here,
There it is, yes,
coming out.
right.
Some people say it gets used. I don't spend a lot of time looking at it to see how much it happens,
I
but
don't
we could definitely, because that would enter them into right in the intersection, so.
Right.
Probably,
But
it could have a
it's for
stop
down the
sign, you could have a
future,
stop sign there.
Ryan.
We'd
Right.
figure it out in final
Yeah.
design, but it's a good point.
Yeah.
It's a really good point.
You can make it one way.
Oh, you make it one way in, yeah.
Going
yeah,
in, not
yeah,
out.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, there you go. Yeah, that's a simple fix.
I mean, it is a private roadway, so you'd need the
Yeah.
agreement of those folks, but
Well, we control the right of way, so we could be like, you got to go. I mean, I think that's reasonable for us, because that's definitely a good potential safety issue.
it's not great. I sometimes will duck down that to get behind the buildings, but I never go the other way, because it's very hazardous to pedestrians for a car to be poking up there. Yeah.
Thank you.
So,
Yep.
yeah, great, because we all love the idea. And I think it's a home run, too.
It is.
I really do. I mean, it would add a lot. I would say, like, people call it a green space, and they do put green. There's a lot of different ways you could do this. You try to grow grass there, it might be tough to
Okay.
maintain,
I
but
still
you
like the
could make
idea.
a really high-quality space here.
Yeah, a
And
little
anytime you
park
can make something like this in your downtown, I mean, it's similar to, the triangle at Newburyport, if you ever, seen that extra area, I mean, it really makes a lot of sitting area, a lot of, just, it brings a lot to a downtown, and especially with your bandstand right there. It
So
really.
what else would I call it other than a green area? So
No, greens, I was just, we
Okay.
can call it a green space, but, it
might not
doesn't,
be green.
a green could be trees.
Okay.
And
Yeah.
landscaping, not necessarily, people think it's all grass. Who knows what
No,
the
we have
final
trees.
design is, but
Yeah.
we'll take a look at it, because we gotta make sure we can, these turns, the biggest thing is like making this turn, this might have to pull back a little bit for, trucks coming and trying to make this turn, that might be tight. And the biggest thing is this stop sign right here to stop this traffic, how much does this cue that back, and is it acceptable, and is it
Yeah.
gonna start affecting, but
Oh,
those are.
that's not going to, that's going to be,
problem.
certain times a day, that's not going to be pretty.
Well, absolutely. We got to look at all that. So we just want to know if the idea was supportive, which it sounds like it is, then we'll go to the next step and start, putting it in the intersection program at some point, and start
Yeah.
looking at the engineering to see if this is feasible. But the idea itself, the concept is.
I like
pretty good.
what my colleagues have said, is that keep it on the radar. It's not, there are
mid-long.
other things that are, but also not 10 years down the road. I mean,
Yeah.
A lot of the things that we've covered prior to this are going to alleviate congestion, and it may make this seem more tenable after we've done these other suggestions. So that, sequencing these correctly in terms of adoption is really critical.
Yeah.
And this is not the thing to lead off with.
no.
Yeah, no, that one's, because and then this will dictate, because we got to institute paid parking, and then if the parking changes, but with the technology these days, it's not big, because you're probably going to go to app, Park Mobile, that's where all these places are going. So it's just a zone. Have you seen those yet? Like the zone, yeah. And did I tell you last time the registered, did I tell you about that? There's a Park Mobile vendor reached out to me, and he, and I put him off. I said, listen, maybe someday we'll put out an RFP for this, and you can come to the table. But he did mention something interesting in his email to me, that in Exeter, there are 5,000 and something, just over 5,000, like 5,100 registered Park Mobile users that live in Exeter.
Who reside in Exeter.
Who reside in Exeter, because they have that information because they sign up for it. So they're going to, like Portsmouth, Hampton, so some of you maybe, the Park Mobile. So I found that surprising. That's all,
It's not.
it's about a
it's not
third of
the-
our population.
It's not the heavy lift
Yeah.
that the opponents make it seem like.
Yeah. So that was encouraging to hear that just one app, there's 5,000 people already have it that live here in Exeter, and we don't even have paid parking. And so they're using it somewhere else. Great.
Yes, we are.
Okay, I'll need a tutorial because I've never
Oh, it
used
is-
an app for
It is
parking.
it is.
All right, this one's a little not diluted. It has quite a few things in it. It says multimodal improvements, and it includes several proposals under this strategy, and each would have to be analyzed on their own merits. Staff does, recommend deferring on these improvements until other improvements are identified and implement. Then at least some of the proposals would be well suited for non-permanent trials to see how they function. So we thought, okay, of all these things, these are all good things, but put them a little bit, the midterm, and then maybe these mid to long-term
This is
type
another,
things.
this is another sequencing thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, some of them are a little bit easier, like a crosswalk or something like that, like enhance a bump out or something like that. Okay, some of those are fairly low hanging fruit that could be done, but then others, like that one.
That is interesting.
Yeah, that changes the direction of Clifford and Franklin Street, switches the one-way direction, adds a significant bump out in pedestrian space and kind of shrinks up the road to, this is more, slows traffic down, doesn't, prioritizes.
Be way safer for pedestrians.
Absolutely, no question about it. But they're pretty big designs, they're pretty big changes, and it's almost something if paid parking was instituted, revenue was generated to make improvements to
Right.
get people from their cars and so forth, this would be something. So I don't even know, this is more just, unless anyone feels really strongly, I would say, we're just telling you about these, and
Well, look at
they're
the
more
future
mid,
possible.
long-term type
Yeah.
thing when you get them, unless anyone feels differently on that,
Don't
I
lose
would say.
track of it. It's a
Exactly.
great suggestion, but
Exactly.
it's not for right now.
Correct.
That
Okay,
would be
good,
my take.
good. And then this is another one up by Townhouse Common, right up here, where there's currently a yield sign. This is where is it? this Townhouse Commons, we're right over here. The PD, is down here, and the fire station, they come up here. Right now, there's a yield sign here. So you have to come like out to here to be able to see. This is a very prominent turn, taking a left here. So you taking a left out of here is difficult. Coming up Court Street and taking a left onto Front, that movement is difficult. This would three-way stop it. So then everyone would just, take their turn, would slow everything down, make pedestrians much safer crossing here, but also at what impact to the vehicles, stopping. So all I think worthy concept, but need a lot more fleshing out.
Agreed.
All right, and then the final one is probably one of the biggest changes that this report recommends. Reimagining Water Street's cross-section. Right now, you can see in the picture here, along this side, basically from String Bridge all the way down to Stillwell's, is all angled parking, 60-degree angled parking or so. And they recommend possibly going, this is String Bridge. Right now, this is all angled parking all the way down here to the PA Boathouse. Stillwell's is right there, making this all parallel parking.
What is the conversion rate between a parallel parking space and a angled parking space?
A little bit, about a little less than half.
A little less than half.
So you have 75 spaces and you go to 46.
Got it.
Well, the benefit of this, it's about half, but then you add these spaces along this side that aren't there. So that's where you get why you don't lose total half.
Yeah, right.
Because you lose about half over here, but then you gain some back on this side. Then you do lose a few here because there's angled right here. Those are gone. But then you add about a 10 or so right here that you don't have because you have the width of the road. This one does contemplate a bike lane along here. It does have room for a bike lane. It's not separated from it's between the travelway and the parallel parking. So we looked at this and staff was unsupportive going to parallel parking along Water Street. We're mainly concerned about the loss of the 33 parking spots. We also question the overall safety benefits because one thing about angle parking, if you're driving down and you see an angle parking spot, you just pull right in.
Yeah.
And regardless of people behind you, it keeps the traffic moving. Parallel spots, you got people behind you, you stop, you want to get in here, you stop, and then it backs traffic up. I mean, automatically, because you have to back up. And there's a lot of people that have difficulty getting in and out of parallel
I was going to say,
parking.
that's if you're, good at it and you can get into the first swing.
Yeah.
Mr. Chartrand.
Yeah, I think it's hard for us to imagine this working. But on the other hand, if we do some of these, again, sequencing, if we do some of these things, if we vigorously push parking to those permitted spots, it might become more possible to see how this would work, but we've got to be able to see improvement in the congestion that happens along Water Street. So the paid and the permitted parking are going to help us cut that congestion. Because some of that congestion is cars circling and looking for a parking spot. How much of it, I can't say. But again, let's do these things that we know we can do without radically changing things, and then see how much congestion that eliminates. And I think then things like this might feel like they're more doable, but they don't feel doable right now.
I'd agree with that.
I envision
Okay.
car doors opening into bikes.
Yeah,
Sorry, that's.
Well, I didn't get to that, but
But-
that's, right now, you back up, you can't see them, and
Yeah.
they hit the back of the
Right.
car, but flipping open a
Yeah.
door, I mean, with the bike lane right there, and then even if they try to avoid the door, they're out into the traffic, and, so there's just not a ton of width there to work with. If you were redesigning this on a new plan right now with complete streets in mind, that right-of-way might be, 70 feet instead of, 45. and you have room to, add a nice bike lane with safety on, with barriers on either side or some dead space, so you're not putting bicycles next to cars and cars next to pedestrians. But when you physically don't have the space, it's really tough. It becomes really difficult. And you just do your best.
But again, congestion may be eliminated to some or to a great degree by these
That's a great point.
low-hanging fruit changes that were relatively low-hanging fruit. These are the reaches that maybe we consider if we can start to lessen congestion, automobile congestion specifically. If people are going straight to the permitted spots, then they're not even driving their car on Water Street. That eliminates congestion.
That's true.
If there's more turnover in the parking spaces because of paid parking, that eliminates congestion. So it might become possible to envision these things, but it is not possible for us to envision them right now.
Premature,
Yeah.
That's good. Yeah, well said. Well said. All right, so I think we got through them all. I have, just to recap, may I?
Please.
We're gonna, just so I have it right, we're gonna kind of hold off on the shared parking supply, looking at that strategy one.
I minorly object, but it's fine.
Well, no, we're gonna talk offline though.
Yeah.
That can happen,
Yeah.
that can
Great.
happen as well.
Thank
So strategy two, we're gonna look into the short-term loading parking spaces, come back with a proposal, kind of a low-hanging fruit. We're gonna look into paid parking and permit parking, try to, talk to some consultants, see what that world looks like, come back with a strategy for the select board to review. We're gonna start looking at parking and wayfinding signage along with that consultant whole type of thing. We're going to defer the parking ambassadors for now.
Did you jump over permit parking?
I put them together,
Oh, you
paid
put 'em
parking and
together.
permit.
Sorry,
That
I
was
didn't
kind of
hear that.
combined. And then improved markings and signage for bicycles, obviously, that's a yes. Going to be in with the wayfinding, kind of combine those efforts for a whole, kind of downtown sign package, so everything's consistent, colors are consistent, recognizable, size, et cetera. We're going to kind of further investigate, kind of put it on hold, but keep an eye on establishing the new truck route to see, if there's any issues that are thing, and maybe when we start engaging the businesses on this, maybe they have some issues that they can make us aware of that we're not, but defer it until then. The zoning is going to go to the planning board. We're going to continue to explore the revised parking ban in the next year or two, and come back with some options, and talk to the new police chief, new fire chief, new public works director since the last recommendation was made. And we're supportive of the reconfiguration of the bandstand, strategy 12, kind of mid to longer term, the midterm area, 5 to 7, whatever years. So we'll keep an eye on that. And we'll slowly, kind of start looking at that from an engineering perspective and see what's feasible. The multimodal improvements, we'll keep an eye on them. We'll, in the longer term vision, if there happens to be a project or something that we can fold one of these in, then, we'll do that. But we'll just kind of keep an eye on them. They're not an immediate, we're not going to do anything immediately with those. And reimagining Water Street, kind of a longer term examination. Is that what
I think that sums it up.
Perfect. Well, thank you very much for your time then. Appreciate it.
Dave, thank you
Thanks,
for
Dave.
this.
Yeah,
Can you thank all the folks on staff that gathered to
I will.
work on this?
Yes,
Great job.
certainly.
Kind of good to see that where it's at this point, right? How long
Very
has this
good.
been going on?
Yes, it's for a while.
A little bit.
And then I'm here for that. I'll stick around because I'm here for
Which one?
the permit approvals. I'm here for Greg Bisson.
Okay. Well, why don't we jump to it?
Okay.
Why don't we jump right to it?
Okay, thanks. I'm assuming this was under permits
under
approval
permits
because it wasn't on agenda, Russ?
Yep.
Correct.
Okay.
Right.
So we're done with our discussion items. We are jumping to regular business. We have no abatements, credits, and exemptions. And if the board is okay, let's jump right to the rec revolving fund request, which Mr. Sharples is going to present on behalf of Mr. Bisson.
Yes, I won't read his memorandum, I'll recap it, though. I am familiar with this. He is home, I believe, and unable to make it here tonight, so I told him I would be here anyway and be happy to explain this. I have taken over as project manager for the 10 Hampton Road renovations. So, actually, the Facility Advisory Committee suggested that as well. And just my familiarity with construction and project management. So to that end, we've been working, trying to get a contract together and working with the CDFA, and they have rules and regulations, and part of their stipulation is if any grant funding, you need to go out get 3 bids, try to get a minimum of 3 bids for everything, for any of the, professional or trades. While we are getting, when we came to you to engage Hampshire Development Corp. as the construction manager at risk here, a design builder, actually, it turns out to be, as the design builder, they're gonna go out and get 3 quotes for everybody, except they don't usually do for the design, for the structural and the mechanical and the engineering component, because they have someone that they work with. They've already kind of done some work with them already on this, and they're a good firm. But usually, we would say, okay, fine, we'll just go out to bid and go through the process. But this grant is timely. By the time we got on board, I mean, this project needs to be done by August, because that's when the funding from the federal funding runs. They will not give us any more funding after that. So this project needs to be completed. So what we thought of was, if we spend the design funds, if we take design funds out of rec revolving fund and pay them directly, through Hampshire Development Corp. or whatever, however it works, but they work for Hampshire Development Corp. But we pay we pay them for the design work, for mechanical engineering out of rec revolving funds, then that eliminates the need for the RFP, the 3 bids and all that, which just could jeopardize the project due to time.
We don't.
So we thought that was the best way. We did meet with the CDFA a week or so ago, and they were okay with that. They blessed this strategy and said, as long as grant funds aren't being used, that's fine. So we saw that as a way. So we're asking to not to exceed. We got quotes right in probably the high 40s for the design, but they're going to just, that's an estimate. So he asked for not to exceed a price of $60,000, and he did mention that the rec revolving fund was, very healthy, is doing well in 2024 with the projected revenue, and has a balance of just under $126,000, and can absorb this expenditure.
Well, I'm aware of the time constraint here, so I think this is a solid plan. More so, and this is a compliment, Dave, you're probably one of the hardest working people I know. I hate to pile one more thing on your workload, but I'm very excited that you're now involved in this capacity. So I think that's going to be a great plus for this project moving forward. So I would be in favor of doing this.
Mr. Chair, if I could just second your emotion. The fact that you're involved with this, Dave, gives me a lot of confidence. The work that you've done on the initial phases of the public safety have been stellar. And the fact that you're now involved with this gives me a great deal of comfort. So thank you for agreeing to do that. You're really good at this. You have experience, but you're also just really good at this. You have a knack for it.
Thanks.
So I'm very.
Yeah, I enjoy it too.
It shows. So I'm very comfortable with this.
Yep.
Selectwoman Belanger, I know you're the Select Board Rep to Rec Advisory.
I am. I think this is a great idea. I'm racking my brain trying to remember what fund Greg was talking about pulling money out for Planet Playground, and I thought it was revolving fund. So even if it isn't, we'll deal with that at another meeting. I think this is a great idea. So
Do you have anything to add?
Nope, I think it's a great idea as well.
No, I meant about what Selectwoman Belanger just said.
As far as a revolving fund use of Planet Playground, that's something I'd have to ask Director
I can't remember,
Bisson.
what other fund could he be using?
The project is supposed to be paid for from a grant and from fund balance,
Okay.
Yeah,
so
don't
Unless-
quote me.
unless
I will
the-
get back,
we
I'll
can
look
get
at my
back.
notes when I
unless the
get home.
dollars are increased over the
Yeah.
initial amount.
Anyway, it's not a now problem.
Okay.
I shouldn't have started.
If there's no other discussion, then I'd entertain a motion to authorize the Parks and Recreation Department to use recreation revolving funds to pay all fees associated with the necessary design work to complete the renovation of 10 Hampton Road contracted through HDC and not to exceed the price of $60,000.
So moved.
Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries 4-0. Thank you, Mr. Sharples.
Thank you, have a good night.
You.
One quick question. May I call you tomorrow afternoon?
Sure.
Okay,
I'll be
thanks.
around.
I'd like to jump out of order one more time if the board would indulge me, because we have our Public Works Director on Zoom, so that he can enjoy the rest of his evening. Mr. Cronin, can you hear us?
Did I?
You might have,
I might have.
he's there,
Oh, he is?
yeah. Steve, can you hear us?
I can. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Before you tonight is a recommendation from the Public Works Department to approve a contract with CMA Engineers in the amount of $377,000 for the School Street Area Improvements Project. This project is one of the many infrastructure projects that Public Works has advanced in recent years. The project area includes School Street, Garfield Street, Causes Street, and Union Street. The purpose of the project is to address aging and undersized sewer, water, and drainage infrastructure. Will include full-depth reconstruction of the roadway, as well as implementation of ADA accessible pedestrian accommodations. CMA has been pre-qualified by the town through a previous pre-qualification-based selection process that was used for the Salem Street area project. They've assisted the town on several other projects, as well as the formulation of the initial request for this project and the preliminary construction estimates. They also assisted us in drafting an SRF application, which resulted in a clean water SRF loan in the amount of just over $4.8 million, with 35% principal forgiveness. So we are comfortable moving forward with them, and would like to execute this contract as soon as possible.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Cronin. Any questions from the board?
I have none. I like this.
Okay. Seeing no questions, I would entertain a motion to award the School Street Area Improvement Project contract design to CMA Engineers in the amount of $377,000, and to further authorize the town manager or their designee to sign all associated contracts or paperwork.
So moved.
Second.
So motion and a second. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries 4-0. Thank you, Mr. Cronin.
Thank you.
Have a great night. Okay, and then jumping back to our last approval, Mr. Dean, we had some feedback from the Eagle Scouts. Looking for my notes, they're right here.
Yes, they've gotten back to us at this point.
Okay, and I know Selectwoman Belanger, you had taken the lead on some of these questions.
They
Did
were my questions to ask. Thank you.
Did they answer them to your satisfaction?
They did. Thank you, James. I really appreciate it. He was very thorough in his responses. The only thing I'm going to ask is, James, if you're listening, that you check in when you check the box every month. Let the town manager's office know if it's being utilized, and if it's not, then maybe we can do something through Exeter TV to advertise it a little bit, or do something like that.
I think we should do that anyway.
I think so too.
Maybe get the scouts in.
Sounds good.
Have
Yeah,
Mr. Galacki read out to them?
Want to talk
Yeah.
or something, so if that could happen, that would be great. Yeah, and that's it for me, thank you.
Any other questions from the board? Mr. Dean, did you need any action on this? I think we'd already approved the box.
I think it's all set.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we're good?
Yeah.
We're good.
Great. Then with that, I would ask you for your town manager's report, please.
Okay, so the first thing on the report tonight is just an update on the downtown mobile food vending license agreement application. We've been meaning to update it, and we've done that. I did have a meeting with Pam McElroy, the chair, and Melissa Roy last week. We went over specifics of the downtown vending spot, and we feel like the RFP is in place now to be able to release it tomorrow. And is in good shape. So we're planning on doing that tomorrow to the general public. So we will do that. Any questions about that?
Could you hit on just a couple of the changes, which I think involved, one of them was the propane?
Yeah, we did put into the RFP, we basically put in there that there would be no propane, and there would be propane usage is prohibited in the downtown mobile food vending location, and then selling or serving alcohol is prohibited in the downtown mobile food vending location. And then we also added if the vendor has had within the last year a health inspection that yielded more than 2 critical item violations per inspection, that would be deemed to be a mode to disqualify a potential vendor for that. So,
Any questions?
No.
all right. So we'll move on to the report. You heard 10 Hampton Road already. The police station fire substation project is being furthered. The construction manager RFQ was put out on October 4th. The submission deadline is October 25th, 2024. We're doing weekly check-ins that continue with T-Gas, who is the architect on the project, and he's working with the site design with the chiefs. There's also been a discussion about governmental land uses and how that impacts the project. There are 2 wetlands on the site, but we feel like we have that situation in hand because of it. It is a governmental use, and we can also confirm that we can use the existing commercial drive as a secure means of ingress and egress for fire and police vehicles. So that's all good news as far as the site development process goes with this site for the police and fire substation. We did have an issue with the filter media at the groundwater treatment plant this past week. I wanted to reach out and thank the Public Works employees who worked with us on that. There were some issues with backwashing. The green sand filter media were 22 inches lower than normal. We did have to purchase some additional green sand from a neighboring community, which willingly stepped up to help us out. And they did a great job coming around and making that work. So we appreciate all of their efforts. The Epping Road widening, the project Phase 1 is nearing completion. And just to update the board that the Phase 2 would be spring and then summer of 2025. The Economic Development Director is working on a warrant article follow-up that would incorporate Phase 2 of that project, and that will be forthcoming soon from the Economic Development Office. And also, we hired a new firefighter today. His name is Kieran McCabe. We're up to full staffing in the fire department, which is good news. And we actually have one injury on duty that leaves us one short, so we're not at full staffing, but as far as staff goes, we are there. So that's good news. We also hired a new police officer, Aaron Herbert, from the city of Dover. He is coming to us with 3 years of experience from the Newmarket Police Department, so we're excited to have him on board and can't wait till he gets here. And he is planning on starting on October 21st. Then the Household Hazardous Waste Day is October 19th on Saturday, just as a reminder. And the health insurance rates did come in last week. They came in at an 18.7% increase year over year, which is a pretty tough budget impact. And we're working on those numbers right now and hope to have an update for the board in the Budget Recommendations Committee this Friday at their meeting. So we'll have that then. And unless there were questions, that was going to be my report tonight.
Any update on what we talked about earlier during public comment with the Swayze turnaround?
I don't have an update for you, Mr. Chair.
Okay.
Okay.
Because I thought the timing was crucial and after the...
Right. We have started the work out there.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great.
It is underway.
Okay. Any questions for Mr. Dean? All right, seeing none, Selectwoman Belanger, Select Board Committee reports, please.
Okay, so I had my first Arts and Culture Advisory Committee meeting on October 8th. They're going back to a regular schedule, so that's good. There were a few things that came up. The chair dollies that we had asked for were purchased and they're too big. So I reached out to Russ and asked him to see what he can do. He was going to reach out to a few department heads if they can use them. If not, he was going to send them out to surplus and then look at, he was going to have Greg purchase the next ones once we.
Greg, yes.
And that way we know that they fit.
Can we return them?
No, but they've had them too long. And then, so then the project on the town hall was discussed and they wanted the proposed plans to be public, but I reached out and found out that they're being vetted right now. So that's why they're not out there. And then I made a big error and we talked about a quorum, and we thought one person was just running a little late and started the meeting, and we shouldn't have started the meeting because we really didn't have a quorum, so that there were things discussed. Bruce Jones was voted to become a regular member instead of an alternate, so all that stuff will have to be redone. And it won't affect being able to have the next meeting as long as we have the quorum, because he can be voted to act as a voting member for the night, and then I can come back to appoint him as a regular member. Okay, so there's the Arts and Culture Committee, and then Planning Board was canceled on October 10th. And let's see, Arts and Culture, the Hawk Bench. The sculpture, Joe Gray still needs to get a waiver to Parks and Rec. That's why that hasn't proceeded on that. And then this week, I took some time off from my day job because I'm going with Bob Kulacki and Exeter TV to the New Hampshire Coalition of Community Media for a few hours on Thursday. Gabe is going to record it, so it will be part of their meeting bi-weekly report. Bob Glowacki is the vice chair, and it's just, this one's on community storytelling as journalism, and a lot of like our Exeter TV get together and brainstorm and talk about things that they can do differently. And then we have the all-day general government BRC meeting on Friday. I'm looking forward to that. And then the following week, Arts and Culture's back on schedule, so they'll be meeting on the fourth Tuesday of every month. Then we have BRC that Wednesday night, Parks and Rec that Wednesday night. I can't be in two places at once, so I'll have to watch the BRC. And then Planning Board on Thursday night, the 24th. And then our Housing Advisory Committee meeting was moved to October 25th at 8:30 in the morning because a developer is coming to talk to us about ways that developers can work with communities, planning board and things like that for attainable housing. So I'm really looking forward to that. And then that night, I have a 5 o'clock walk through Newmarket. The Workforce Housing Coalition is having a forum to discuss 79E. So we'll be walking through that, and I'll stop. Oh, one more thing. So Arts and Culture, we have 3 openings, 3 voting, 1 alternate. Planning Board has 5 vacant alternates. So please, people, if you just reach out to me, I'll be happy to talk to you. And Housing Advisory Committee has 1 voting and 1 vacancy. And as of right now, the ZBA has 2 alternates. I kind of took ZBA over because none of us are appointed, so now I'm done with it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chartrand.
I did attend a Conservation Commission meeting on the 8th of October. The Concom did its usual stellar job wrestling with an application on a lot that wraps around McDonald's on Portsmouth Ave, next to the Volvo dealership. There's a request for a large amount of fill to go in. They're really wrestling with it. And they asked for more time. And I think the November meeting is a day before the state is taking action on this, or we were going to ask the state to delay slightly so that we could meet one more time. I can't emphasize again how great a job the Conservation Commission members do. They really, they're trying to understand how this could be recommended, but they're struggling with it because it's a large amount of fill that the applicant is suggesting to put in. So I just admire their work so much, and that's my report.
Thank you. I actually watched that meeting on TV, and I was equally as impressed.
Yeah. Thank you.
Good stuff. Selectwoman Cowan.
I have nothing to report in terms of committee meetings, but I would encourage everybody to remember that we have an election coming up, November 5th. And we had somebody here from the public last time we had a meeting who encouraged everybody to vote. It is part of our civic duty and really important to democracy to keep exercising the right to vote. And we are here. You can come register same day. Please bring your ID and your smile, and we will see you then.
Thank you. Thank you. Let's see. Well, we had a BRC kickoff on October 2nd that most of us were at. I've had a lot of meetings here in the last 2 weeks. Mr. Dean, I almost feel like I need to pay rent because I've been occupying space here. There was a Pearpoint Park committee meeting last week, which they had added on. Their regular scheduled meeting will be this Thursday. There was a lot of discussion about, trying to choose my words. There was a lot of discussion about multiple options, and I think there was some confusion as to sort of the sequencing. I like that word that you used earlier. There are some, step back, that we appointed 11, 2 are alternates, but we appointed 11 incredibly talented and experienced folks who all have the best interests at heart in putting together a gem of a park. And I think that where it's a new committee, there are some who are very anxious to get something going, while others want to be a little bit more deliberate to make sure that we're getting buy-in from the community. And there's nothing wrong with wanting to be aggressive, and there's nothing wrong with wanting to get something done, and there's certainly nothing wrong with some members of the committee who have offered volunteer man-hours, people hours, and even some funding. But there was just a little bit of disagreement as to the sequencing. There was also input from Mr. Sharples that wasn't received as well by some as others. And so I think that the goal of this meeting on Thursday, I had a long meeting with the chair of the committee this afternoon for about an hour and a half right in this room. And I think the goal of this meeting is at the end of it to have something to come back to the select board for next steps, but also kind of sort of reset. And I'm confident Steve Jones has done an exceptional job chairing the committee. And again, it is a talented group of folks who just want to roll up their sleeves and do some good work. But when you have that many people and that many personalities, that's tough. And so I think we'll be in a good space Thursday to move forward. But I think that always being respectful of fellow volunteers and certainly being respectful of our town staff that come in after hours and work nights, and particularly our town planner in this case, who sacrifices many evenings. It's just always a reminder to our volunteers where we're so thankful for how selfless they are and come in and volunteer their hours and their time and sometimes their money. But we just have to be respectful of everybody. And I think that's a lesson for all of us, right? So,
Especially our town employees.
absolutely. So I'll leave it at that. I'm looking forward to a very, very good conversation Thursday afternoon, and I'm really looking forward to them coming before the board. So I'll end there. Correspondence, we have a flyer from the Parks and Rec for a senior council resource fair that's going to be held October 22nd from 10 to noon at Langdon Place of Exeter. We have a flyer from the New Hampshire Daughters of the American Revolution, who will be hosting an event Saturday, November 2nd at 1 o'clock, and that's going to be at the Winter Street Cemetery. We have a memo from our Conservation and Sustainability Planner, Kristen Murphy, giving us a Rains Barn repair and improvement project, and I know that there's some folks excited about having some wintertime activities there, but I think this is a very thorough update, letting the board know where we're at there. We also have a letter from the chair of the board at Riverwoods Exeter, Susan Desjardins, notifying the board of steps they're taking with their residents and notifying them of the proposed future plans. And I was very thankful that Ms. Desjardins included us in that. We have several emails sent last week from David Kovar. And I know, Mr. Dean, you've looked into both of these and communicated with
Yes.
them, and I'm appreciative of those efforts, so thank you.
Thank you.
And we thank Mr. Kovar for looking out for the safety of our community. Reviewing the board calendar, we meet again on October 28th, November 12th, which I note is a Tuesday, November 25th, December 9th, and December 23rd.
And I've told everybody that I can't be here on the 25th.
Yes.
Okay.
Yep, thank you. And I'll put in a plug for the town moderator that we'll all be expected to be working the election, and if we can't or we need to find some people, let's start working on that.
Done.
Thank you.
Yeah, can I also just throw out a possibility, because we tend to take one break during the day, if we could maybe try to make sure we're covered for two, it's gonna be a very long day.
I think you're right.
And I'm afraid I'm getting to a point in life where one hour break is not gonna cut it.
not enough.
I'm not much use by the time polls close and we're doing
I
something.
vigorously disagree with that.
What?
You're not much use.
At the end, when we're
No,
counting,
I-
I'm just not awake as I'd like to be. How's
Well,
that?
I enjoy working with you the entire
Thank
day,
you.
so. With that, if there's no other issues that the board would like to take up, I would entertain a motion to enter into non-public under RSA 91A, :3, 2A, and I'm going to ask our vice chair to take the roll call, please.
Sure. Selectwoman Belanger.
Yes.
Do we need to move?
Don't I need to move
Oh,
it?
I beg your pardon, right.
So moved.
A second.
And now we do the roll call.
Selectwoman Belanger.
Aye.
Selectman Chartran.
Aye.
I say aye, Mr. Chair.
Aye. Motion passes 4-0. The board will be moving into non-public. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you for tuning in to Exeter TV. Exeter TV is the town's public and government access channels, available on Comcast Channels 6 and 22. Channel 6 is your channel. If you have an idea for a program, want to host your own talk show, or submit a film, we're here to get your content on television. On Channel 22, we bring you live and replay coverage of government meetings and other town updates. A third channel, Blue Hawk Media, is operated by SAU 16 and can be found on Channel 8, with all your school sports, events, and meetings. You can watch Exeter TV online at exeternh.tv, Apple TV, and on Roku. Find us on social media for extra content. Subscribe to our YouTube channel and hit the bell to get notified about live streams and new content. Tune in to our platforms every other Friday to watch the Exeter Biweekly Report, with recaps of recent events, updates from town departments, and messages from nonprofits in your area. If you head to our website, exeternh.tv, we invite you to sign up to our newsletter to receive monthly updates about new content, upcoming meetings, and more. We'd like to thank you for taking the time to watch Exeter TV and hope that you tune in to our other content as well.